This video deals with factoring using the sum of two cubes and the difference of two cubes. So there are two very important formulas here. We have one for the sum and one for the difference. Now the most important thing to recognize here is when you see an equation, you can recognize it as something cubed plus something else cubed, or something cubed minus something else cubed. And once you find that, you can take what values you find for A and B and plug it right into these formulas. So let's go ahead with an example. We have here 125 x cubed plus 64 equals 0. The most important thing is to find our A and our B. So we can ask ourselves, 125 x cubed is what cubed? Let's find the cube root. Cube root is 5x. Why? Because if we take the whole thing cubed, distribute our exponent, we have 5 cubed equals 125, and x cubed is simply x cubed. So we have our A. Now 64 is the same thing as 4 cubed. And if you don't know the cube root of a number, there's a function in your calculator that can do that, so you can check. So now we got this equation to look exactly like this one. We know it's the sum because it's added. So let's write down what our A and our B is. We have A equals 5x and B equals 4. Now let's go ahead and plug that right into the formula for the sum of two cubes. 5x plus 4, so that's A plus B, times A squared. And make sure you include your parentheses, because using the laws of exponents, you distribute that and that would change our answer. It's the whole thing of A squared minus A times B plus B squared. Let's clean that up. So we have 5x plus 4 times 25x squared minus 20x plus 16 equals 0. Now just with any factoring, we know that if it's one term times another term equals 0, we know that one or both of these equals 0. So we would take them individually, set them equal to 0, and solve for x. So let's go ahead and do that with the first term. We have 5x plus 4 equals 0. Now using just simple algebra, we would subtract 4 from both sides, leaving us with 5x equals negative 4. Now to get x alone, we would divide by 5 on each side, which leaves us with x equals negative 4 over 5. And this is one of our solutions. Now just for the sake of space, I'm going to rewrite. We're going to set the second term equal to 0 and solve for x here on the next page. The second term we had was 25x squared minus 20x plus 16 equals 0. Now the way that I find most people find it's easiest to solve this would be the quadratic formula, which if you remember is x equals negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Now if you don't have that memorized, I suggest you memorize it. There is a song you can look up that goes with this to help you memorize it. That's how I did. Now we can recognize in this equation that a is 25, b is negative 20, and c is 16. So we can plug that right into the quadratic formula. X equals negative b, negative 20 is just plain 20, plus or minus square root of b squared, which is negative 20 squared, minus 4 times a times c, all over 2a. Okay, now we can go ahead and pull out our calculator. And the first thing I usually do is just figure out what's inside of the radical. So we have negative 20 squared minus 4 times 25 times 16, which is negative 1200. So we can rewrite this. X equals 20 plus or minus the square root of negative 1200 all over 2 times 25, which is 50. Now, anytime you see a negative inside of a radical, think I. So we have here x equals 20 plus or minus. Now we can rewrite this as, because negative 1200 is the same thing as negative 1 times 1200, but we can factor that down to 100 times 12, which is 100, times 4 times 3, all over 50. Now we know that this is the same thing as square root of negative 1 times square root of 100 times square root of 4 times square root of 3, all over 50. Okay, so we have x equals 20 plus or minus square root of negative 1 is I, square root of 100 is 10, square root of 4 is 2, and square root of 3 is just square root of 3, all over 50, which is the same thing as x equals 20 plus or minus 2 times 10 is 20, I square root of 3, all over 50. If you want to simplify this, we can divide each term by 10, which leaves us with 2 plus or minus 2i square root of 3, all over 5. So this are our second and third solutions, the positive and the negative. Like we had before, you'll have your solutions x equals negative 4/5 and x equals 2 plus or minus 2i times square root of 3 all over 5, and you're done.